Hi, I'm Noelle, the host of Pop Punk and Pizza, and today we're doing something a little different than usual. As you may know, I love many other genres besides pop punk, and heavy metal is one of them. So today I'm joined by the legend Gene Hoglan, who has been involved in a multitude of heavy metal bands like Death and Testament, and has been a live member for bands like Anthrax and Opeth, and is currently the drummer of Dark Angel, which is one of my favorite thrash slash death metal bands. So
Whoa.
how are you?
I'm doing well, Noel. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah,
It's
of
very
course.
cool.
And so you're releasing Extinction Level Event sometime this year, which will be your first album since Time Does Not Heal in 1991, which is absolutely crazy. Um, and you released the first single from the album, which is the title track. And it has writing credits from Jim Durkin, who passed away in 2023. Can you talk about how you found that song he wrote and how you decided to use it for the album?
Well, when Dark Angel, when we kind of, reformed because we took a very, very, very extended hiatus for over 20 years kind of thing. When we got back together and started doing some shows in 2014, um, the vibe was so cool and everything worked out so well that we're like, hey man, maybe we can think about maybe doing a record. And I got together with Jim, and Jim, kind of just unveiled this song to me. He sent me a file of it. He's like, I wrote this song, not all that long ago, and I thought, well, if Dark Angel would ever get back together, if we would ever do another Dark Angel anything, I would throw this one on the stack for Dark Angel songs. I just thought the song was killer, so I was really excited about it. And so that is actually the song that gave myself and Jim the impetus to start getting together and becoming the writing team that we were back in the day. And so we started getting together, and I actually, I made the announcement in some, I didn't even announce, I just happened to mention in an interview somewhere that, yeah, man, we're going to, Dark Angel's working on a new record, because Jim and I were already starting to get together with, he had a couple of songs written. I had a couple of things that I was working on. And
Hmm.
he had, I had mentioned this in an article, and one of the big, headlines was Dark Angels writing new material. They're releasing an album soon. I was like,
Hmm.
it's not quite the way I put it, but
Okay.
sure. So, and here we are a decade later, and we get to make this song the lead off track. It's the title track. It just, I remember Jim had a different title for it, but the lyrics worked out the way they did, and it just, we released it as our first song, not because it was like, this was a song that Jim had written. It's just, we like the song. It's a good
Hmm.
representation of where Dark Angel is at. So, it just all kind of worked out really well in that regard. So that's why it is our initial track. It's the title track. And I'm really excited. I'm
Yeah.
excited about the album, excited about the response, whether it's good or bad. If people are talking about it, that's all that matters. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it sounds awesome. I love the new single, so I'm
Thank you very
excited
much.
for what you put out next.
Thanks.
So last weekend you guys played at Banger's Open Air Festival in Brazil, right? How was that?
It was amazing. What a fantastic show. It was Dark Angel's first time ever in Brazil. Like, we have played
Okay.
Santiago, Chile a number of times, and we
Yeah.
just recently also played Buenos Aires, Argentina for the first time. Dark
Hmm.
Angel is starting to make our headway into the South American market. We played Europe tons, we played Japan, and all those, the
Hmm.
states, obviously a bunch.
Yeah.
Um, but this was our first time ever to Brazil, and the crowd was amazing. And the only unfortunate incident that could have marred the show, it did not, was our guitarist Eric. He didn't make the first flight down there,
Oh no.
um, and so they had to keep him in Dallas, Texas, for a day till we got him another flight.
Yeah.
He is ready to get on that second flight. It got canceled. It was a
Oh
big
no.
a lot of weather related cancellations
Yeah.
over that little stretch of time all over the place for all the airlines. And so we learned at rehearsal. We were rehearsing in Sao Paulo. That's where the show was at.
Hmm.
I flew in directly from Europe off a Bear McCreary tour that I just finished. And we showed up, went straight to rehearsal. We learned at rehearsal that, hey, man, Eric is not going to make the show
Oh
at
no.
all. And so our
Oh,
guitarist, Laura Christine, she just put it all on her shoulders. And she's like, okay, let's figure out how we're going to do this. She's like,
yeah.
the wheels are turning. She's like, okay, I can play these Eric parts here where he does this intro. I can do that. And where he does these
Hmm.
little punches there, I can do that. His lead over here, I can play that lead and get back to my rhythms and come in on my lead. And, she's doing this
Yeah.
on the fly at rehearsal. And then we played the show the next day and it was crushing. It was killer.
Oh.
It was so tight. It was the
Oh, that's
tightest we've ever
sick.
done. So she did a great job. We all stepped up. We all faced the challenge. And, we were, I guess we were fortunate that back in 1989, we had to play as a four-piece for a small round of our touring cycle that we were on. And, but this was, we had to face a challenge and we knocked it out of the park, lots of grand
Hmm.
slams all over the place. And all the YouTube footage is there. So check that
Yeah,
out. And it came
I
out
will.
really good.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And you can tell that you really care about everything that goes into the sound of your drums, like by watching your interviews. You said you use leg weights sometimes when you're playing double bass, and
Mm-hmm.
you even learn guitar because you said it helps you kind of understand the other members in your band better and kind of help communicate with them so that your drumming can be better. And I think that's so interesting. I don't know any other drummers who care about their sound so much that they would learn a whole nother instrument just to like improve that. So,
Well,
I
thank you.
think, yeah, I think that's really cool. And I was wondering, um, because with each of your bands, you kind of have a different style of drumming. So, like, what kind of inspires you when you're creating a new sound for when you join a new band or a new project?
That is a great question. And I would have to say that it would be the material itself, the band, the sound, the approach of their material
Mm,
itself is what kind of shows me where I need to take the drums. Like, for
okay.
instance, when I was in Dark Angel, that was my, pretty much my first band, and I had sort of established whatever youthful style I had established it in that regard with
Mhm.
them. And then when I joined Death, um, and we were working on the first record that I did with Death, which was called Individual Thought Patterns,
Mhm.
um, that approach on drums lean, leaned more on what the current approach of Death, the band, was.
Mhm.
It did not call for Dark Angel type drumming or even Death, from Spiritual Healing, Leprosy, or Scream Bloody Gore. It didn't call for that drumming.
Mhm.
They had just their album before that was called Human, which that was Sean Reinert's debut with the band as drummer. And Sean, his drumming was so incredible on that album, and it was very technical and
Mhm.
jazz or prog, jazz fusion, prog influenced. So I was
Yeah.
like, this is something I can really get behind. It's like, what
Mhm.
a great just bridge or conduit to the next level of drumming for myself, the next approaches of drumming. So when it came to writing the beats for Individual Thought Patterns and later Symbolic, the one bit that I did try to bring from Dark Angel is there were a lot of times in Dark Angel where I would try to write beats that nobody has heard before. Um,
Mhm.
like, for instance, I started playing a lot of guitar, and so like
Yeah.
with Dark Angel, there was beats where the I could do patterns on the double bass, and
Mhm.
I could also do patterns on guitar. So if you take a song like, say, like A Time Does Not Heal,
Mhm.
I could do that on the kicks, I could do that on the hands. And that was an approach where I was like, hey, I don't hear any other band doing this. So hey, that could be like Dark Angel's little here's one of our things, and
Yeah.
that started coming out in the kind of as early as Darkness Descends, which was my first record, and that one came out in
Yeah.
1986. So, and Leave Scars had a little bit of that, and definitely Time Does Not Heal had a lot of it. And that's where and nowadays that's a very very common approach now for the double kicks to
Okay.
be doing what the double bass, what the guitar riff is doing. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
that was it was brand new to me back then, hadn't heard anybody do it, so let's try that. So, and
Yeah.
when it came to Death and all sorts of other projects after that, I always tried to write beats that hadn't been heard. So Individual Thought Patterns had a number of beats where it's like I've never heard anybody play this, like
Yeah.
bringing the Brazilian bembe beat to Death, don't
Hmm. Yeah.
don't. I'm like, I've never heard anybody try that approach. Let's try that approach. And so
Yeah.
that was pretty cool. So I'm always just trying to, how can I elevate myself? And hey, if
Hmm.
the genre gets elevated as well, beautiful. But I'm just trying to keep myself, keep the
Yeah.
bar high for myself. And if that ends up raising the bar for all of us, then fantastic. I'll take it.
Yeah. That's awesome. And given how influential Death as a band was and is to the current metal scene, do you think your drumming on the album Symbolic has influenced the style of death metal drumming in years to come?
Um, well, so I have been told, like that. I hear that from a lot of folks,
Hmm.
So, and that was just the drums of that album kind of came around to where I remember I had lost a whole bunch of weight, like about 125 pounds, and the drums became really, really super duper easy for me to play. So throwing my
Hmm.
arms around and doing all that kind of jazz fusion, that was the template was laid on Human, and then we advanced that a little bit with Individual Thought Patterns. Symbolic, Chuck and I, we really took our time putting that album together. So it just became like we had a lot of time to experiment. And Individual Thought Patterns was put together in 3 weeks. Like from
Okay.
it was like, oh, get in
Yeah.
there. I that drum wise, from a taste sort of perspective, I view that Individual Thought Patterns as kind of like a bull in a china shop. It was
Yeah.
like he was with it was trying to have some delicate drumming, but it wasn't. It was like so rushed and just trying to
Yeah.
get things done so manically and quickly that
Mhm.
Symbolic, we had a number of months to work on it together. I'd pretty much uprooted over to Florida and I stayed at Chuck's place for months and months and months.
Yeah.
So that really worked out really well to have the drums be very well rehearsed, and all the parts were pretty carefully constructed. And
Hmm.
so and that was especially another album, another pile of compositions where I tried to stretch myself out a little bit and tried to introduce a whole bunch of beats that just I was unfamiliar with being ever hearing. So a
Yeah.
song like Zero Tolerance, for instance, the chorus of Zero Tolerance, there's this kind of I guess it's called a linear phrase drum
Hmm.
beat. And believe me, I don't know much about drums, but that's what that was called. And I understand the
Yeah.
concept of a linear phrase, and I guess that would probably fit into it. But things like that, approaches that nobody else was trying. And so I if I fall on my face with something that I try, okay, that's fine, but at least I tried it.
Right. Yeah.
I've got zero reticence to try something new with any
Hmm.
approach. I will jump into the deep water with head first, and I can sink or swim, but chances are I'll usually swim. I'll usually figure out a
Yeah.
way to make something work. And if it's an approach nobody else has ever tried, I'm all about that. I will
Yeah.
always take that approach. If it's something to
Hmm.
separate one's self from the pack, put me in that line every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. I think that's a good ideology to have because that way you're always creating something new, you know.
Excellent.
You're not sticking with the old.
Right.
So you're going on tour in Europe in June playing your album Darkness Descends in full. And I really wish it was in the US too, because that's my favorite Dark Angel album.
No, right on. Well,
But
killer.
uh yeah, are you excited for that?
Absolutely. It's such a fun record, and I admit that that was my very very first album. I recorded that album when
Yeah.
I was 18,
Oh
and
wow.
we worked really hard on the songs for a year or so in advance. I joined Dark Angel when I was 17, and I had just turned 17, and I knew so little about everything, about drums, about recording, about everything. I was, I mean, I had been around the scene for about 5 years by then, but I still didn't know any I had no firsthand knowledge of how the recording process works or any of
Hmm.
it. So it was just, an eye-opening experience all over the place. And,
Yeah.
um, it was, it was such a ferocious record that was done with just such, youthful enthusiasm that I admit, like that was the only album that kind of sounds like that to me. And I've said it many times that I hate the drummer on that record.
Really?
Um, yeah, because it was just there was no subtlety. There was no like it was just all yeah,
Yeah. It's
which
kind of in your face, like,
it
yeah.
was magical when you're 18, but as a decade ago, when we're trying to relearn the songs, I am just not this drummer anymore. I had to
Yeah.
kind of shoot out a lot of stuff that I learned over the years, and then there's bring back the stuff that I'd forgotten, like that
Yeah.
just that I didn't want to remember. But now it we've been doing it so long, and since I've been concentrating so much on the harder aspect of metal. My chops are really good.
Hmm.
Playing the album is really fun. It used to be a challenge to like play along to it because that drummer is a mess on that record. But now I understand that drummer's messiness, and I know when here's the messy part. Okay, now here's where you
Yeah.
kind of get back in here. Your meter is all over the place, dude. But now rehearsing the album is really fun. Playing the album is really fun. I am now able to play it from a drummer's perspective who has learned a few more things along the way and now can apply them to that 18-year-old drum performance, 18
Hmm.
year old's drum performance. So that's how it all works out really good. And we're excited to play it. I mean, it's a thrash classic.
Yeah,
So
for
it's
sure.
a highly influential record on a whole lot of folks, according to what folks have been telling
Yeah.
me over the last
I would
30
say
years.
so.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool. So yeah, it's
definitely.
really fun to come out and represent it, and we're playing tighter than we ever have. And like I say, this last weekend in Sao Paulo, when we had to play as a four piece, that was very much a revelation for me anyway. For a couple of us, like
Yeah.
we can face any challenge, and we're going to step up our game even tighter. We're going to try to become even tight because we are a very tight band, and
Hmm.
I know sometimes it doesn't sound like that live, but now we know what to do. So there you go.
Yeah. Awesome. And in the many bands and groups that you've played with, which was the most fun in terms of playing live?
Well, they're all fun. Getting to play live is always fun. Like one
Yeah.
of my current bands, Dethklok, that's a
Hmm.
blast to play. I mean, God,
Yeah.
the whole show is just so fun and it's so engaging and it is a relentless show of just like, wow,
Yeah.
in your face for an hour plus. And
Hmm.
I love that. And I
Yeah.
think it's kind of a life changing moment for a lot of people when they see that, and
Yeah.
especially, a decade or so ago when we were playing a lot more than we do these days. Um, and, Strapping Young Lad was another band that I really, really felt like we were changing lives every night. Somebody in the audience was seeing us just going, oh my God, I've never seen or heard anything like this. And I'm
Yeah.
a follower for life now. I
Yeah.
know I want to do what those guys are doing. And
Yeah.
those are always the bands that I want to be involved in, and I've tried to
Right.
be involved in, is the bands that change people's in the audiences, change their trajectory. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, that is so inspiring. I want to do that.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I've been in a lot of fortunate circumstances like that. So there you go.
Yes. Cool. And what did your songwriting process look like for your upcoming Dark Angel album? Did you guys write together or did you kind of send each other your parts or like what instruments did you record first?
Well, usually the drums come first, and then we start layering up the guitars and the bass, and then the vocals tend to come last, and the leads come kind of last. And
Okay.
so a lot of this album was put together in a very short time where,
Hmm.
like Jim Durkin, unfortunately, and myself, we did not get together as much as I think we were both expecting to before the album got started.
Hmm.
Um, so it was it was kind of a matter of in a very short time putting together a ton of kick-ass material, and I was super inspired at that time. So my riffs were coming fast and furious, and the songs were coming really quickly. And having Jim Durkin's influence, like, he might not have a whole lot of material on this record, but his influence is all over it, because Jim was
Hmm.
my first guitar hero when I picked up the guitar, a couple of years before I joined Dark Angel.
Yeah.
And just Jim and I being of like mind, where we were really easy songwriting partners. He'd throw out ideas, I'd throw ideas back at him, I'd throw out ideas, he'd throw ideas back at me. We
Yeah.
became a really good partnership, as did Brett Erickson, his replacement for the Time Does Not Heal
Hmm.
era, did the same thing. We were both really in real good sync together. So um, Jim's influence is all over this record, as
Yeah.
is Laura Christine. She did not come along until way later, but during the
Hmm.
songwriting process, she and I have worked together for a decade and a half over.
Oh,
And
wow.
so her influence as a guitarist, she's an amazing riff writer. And so that
Yeah.
influence, her vibe gets all over me and all over
Hmm.
the material. So there's some Laura Christine vibe there. And
Yeah.
but it is definitely, definitely Dark Angel. And the one approach that I think we wanted to take on this album is like, okay, like, for the last decade or so, people are asking, so this new material that you're writing, is it going to sound like Darkness Descends? Is it going to sound like Time Does Not Heal or Leave Scars? Or is it going to sound like
Hmm.
all three? Or what's it going to sound like? And that is one thing that Dark Angel has never done, is put out a repeat of whatever album was before, or the
Yeah.
successors. So, Darkness Descends did not sound like We Have Arrived, and Leave Scars did not
Right.
sound like Darkness Descends, and so forth with Time Does Not Heal. So
Hmm.
the approach was kind of like, what would it be like if Dark Angel never left, if Dark Angel just kept putting out albums for the last, 3 decades or
Hmm.
whatever? Where would Dark Angel be in 2024, 2025?
Okay.
And that's about the best way I can represent the material. And
Yeah.
as soon as people hear it, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that's definitely Dark Angel. That is one thing
Yeah.
that we do sound like is Dark Angel, but Dark
Hmm.
Angel's sound evolves
Right.
and goes through its permutations from album to album. And all
Yeah.
the lineup changes we have, that brings a new
Hmm.
dynamic with each album. So this album is no different in the fact that it's going to be totally different. It's no
Yeah.
different. The fact that it's totally different, but it's
Right.
the stamp of Dark Angel is definitely there. So
Cool.
that's how that's going to work out for the new record. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm excited for the material. I love the new songs. I love the artwork. God, I love the artwork for the record.
Yeah. It
I'm
looks
I'm
really
super
cool.
stoked with it. And my artist, Kane Gillis, and myself, we've been working together for the last decade or so. And Laura Christine has worked with Kane many times as well. And so,
Mhm.
I just came up with some concepts for Kane to kind of get started with, and that's how the album has come together artwork wise. And like our deluxe bonus editions are going to be super exciting because that's we've tried to come up like with the guy on the cover. I call
Yeah,
the Dark Angel with the Reaper with the wings, or I just
right.
call it the guy or
The
whatever.
guy.
The guy.
Yeah.
There's lots of representations of the guy inside each panel of each song, where we tried to make each panel for each song dedicated to the song's concept. So that is
Hmm.
pretty cool. And I don't know if other bands do that or not, but that's the approach I wanted to take. So all the places where we could for this song or that song or this other song or this other song, we tried to make some artwork that's dedicated to the concept of the song. And
Okay.
so, and Kane was telling me when he completed the artwork was that it took him over 2,000 hours to
Jeez.
from when I first approached him back in 2022 and just him getting it all together. There are so many panels of artwork that he came up with, just thousands
That's
of them, where it's like,
crazy.
this one's good, this one's good, this one's good. No, nope, 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 nope. This one's great,
Yeah.
So having to cull artwork from all of these amazing panels that he created, um, that also
Yeah.
fit the songs where they could, was, the man took 2,000 hours. And, we got to dinner
That's
with him after
insane.
we took him and his girl out to dinner. And after he completed the project, and his girl was even saying, I'm glad I don't have to hear the words Dark Angel again, because for
Yeah.
the last 2.5 years, it's like, hey, dinner's ready. You want to come down? He's like, I'm Dark Angeling.
Dark Angeling.
So
That's funny.
it was pretty it was a pretty all encompassing pile of work for Kane. And Kane's
Yeah.
done tons of stuff. He does stuff for like Flesh God Apocalypse, and he's done the
Hmm.
latest Scour record, and he's done layouts for Shadows Fall, and just a whole ton of stuff. So
Yeah.
um he's a brother, and he did some amazing work on the new record. And I'm really excited for the layout. I'm excited for the artwork. I'm excited for
Yeah.
the music. I'm excited for the performances. Like, I'm stoked on it, and that's all I care about.
Yeah.
I realize there's people that are going to dig it. There are people that aren't going to dig it, but I dig it. That's all that matters to
Yeah.
me. I'm stoked on this record. So there you go.
Awesome. And the Dark Angel song Worms, which is kind of like an instrumental on Leave Scars, definitely sounds like it could be on a horror movie soundtrack. And I know you've written songs for the show Metalocalypse, as the band Dethklok. Would you ever want to write a song specifically for a horror movie or have one of your already written songs be featured on a soundtrack?
I would love that. I think it would be awesome. There's a song on the new record that I think would. There's a couple of songs on the new album that could work on any soundtrack, no matter what you're looking at. I do feel like, I guess, with working on all the kind of soundtrack type material that I have with Dethklok, also with Bear McCreary, if you're familiar with him,
Mhm.
that's another person. I just got off tour with him, and Laura Christine also has played for Bear. And Bear he's a soundtrack writer. He is he's kind of most known for working. He does all the music for The Walking Dead and
Okay.
Battlestar Galactica from a few years ago, and he does a ton of movies. Like we worked on the Godzilla King of the Monsters
Oh, awesome.
movie together there, and a number of other. He just Google Bear McCreary. He also has a
Okay.
solo record that came out about a year ago, and that's called The Singularity, and that's just chock full of all stars on it. Everybody from
Mhm.
Serge Tankian to Corey Taylor to
Okay.
Kim Thile from Soundgarden, Joe Satriani, Laura
Yeah.
Christine, Rufus Wainwright, Brendan Small from Dethklok, Brian Beller. That's just, the list just goes on and on and on of all the guys that have played on it.
Hmm.
And Bear also does movies. He does soundtracks for video games like God of War.
Yeah.
He's just got nominated for a Grammy for his God of War work,
That's
his
awesome.
latest one. So with that sort of soundtrack sort of mentality in mind, I think like there are quite a number of songs on the new Dark Angel record that can work on soundtracks. I know that, for instance, one of the songs is going to be on a soundtrack for an upcoming
Ooh,
movie, and so that's going to be pretty cool. But
that's awesome.
you can just kind of cherry pick any of the songs off this new record if you want. If you got an aggressive bar fight scene, here's a
Yeah.
song for you. If you got
Okay.
apocalyptic end of the world type scene going on, here's a song for that. And so there you
Nice.
go. There's just a whole ton of really really cool stuff on there. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I
Well,
would absolutely do it. I do have some
yeah.
more soundtrack work coming out
Nice.
in the next, things I can't talk about yet, but are featuring some of the largest musicians in the world,
Ooh,
sort of thing, with
damn.
their material for their movie, and that's pretty fun. So um, I know all that future stuff will come to light when it's time for that. So that's
Yeah, that's exciting. And
absolutely.
since this is the Pop Punk and Pizza podcast, I wanted to ask, what's your favorite kind of pizza?
Boy, I tell you, let me see here. What would that be? God, I remember being a kid being introduced to shrimp pizza, and that was amazing. Um, like
I've never tried shrimp pizza.
I know, right? But it's pretty darn good. It's been 50 years since I had that, but
Yeah.
still. Um, Let me see. What's the best kind of pizza? Something with a stuffed crust, definitely.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
will freely admit that we have gotten so much lo-fi pie over the last 40 years. Like your after show food is like Domino's or
Yeah.
something, just ugh. I got kind of burned out on pizza
Mhm.
a long time ago, but
I could see that.
yeah, it just like it's really challenging to find a really, really good pizza, because a
Yeah.
lot of the chains are not very good. And
Hmm.
if they're going to get you, after show food that isn't burgers, usually it's pizza. And it's
Yeah.
some,
It's
you
kind
know,
of like the
some
go-to thing
it's
for most
open and
people.
delivers late,
Yeah.
when the show's over, kind of thing. I think that's
Yeah.
how they choose it. But um, a good sausage pizza, or one of those new styles is kind of like the white pizza with the garlic,
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
the
Yeah.
white cream stuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool to me, just
Yeah.
because it's different. So I'll
Mhm.
take that. And I'll take lasagna over pizza any day. So there you go.
All right. And is there anything else you'd like to discuss or mention before we go?
Well, I know that Dark Angel, we do have, before we leave for Europe, and I think our first shows in this European run, it's going to be a June, quick little June. We're doing early June, then late June, and I'm doing some Dethklok right in between. As a matter of fact, Dark Angel and Dethklok are sharing the same bus. So Dark Angel
Okay.
pops off the bus, some of the cats come home, and then Dethklok gets on that bus, and then Dark Angel comes back, and we continue the tour right after that. But we're hoping to have a new single out before that run starts. I believe the run starts in Germany, in Hamburg, Germany, on June 6th,
Hmm.
and then the 7th in, I believe it's the Netherlands. I think it's the Netherlands. And then we start doing, 4 shows in the UK. And I believe all of these are Darkness Descends shows. So that's going to be super
Yeah.
exciting. Come on out, check them out. It's going to be a vicious, violent night of metal. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
We are relentless live. It just doesn't slow down. There are no
Yeah.
slow songs. So, it's
I hope
easy
I
to,
get I hope I get to see you guys live sometime.
we hope so as well. Darn
Yeah.
tootin'.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Noel. We appreciate you, and just I appreciate, the forum. So thank you very much. And we look forward to
Of
seeing you
course.
and all your fans, all your pop punk fans and pizza. If you're
Yeah.
pop punk or pizza or vicious, violent thrash metal, come out to a Dark
Yeah.
Angel.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a good night.
You too. Take care. Thank you.
Hey, hello, it's nice to meet you.